You know how to do this. You have been doing it your entire life, walking into a room and becoming the version of yourself that room requires. Calibrating your voice, your expression, your level of need, your degree of opinion. Making yourself legible to the people in front of you without making yourself uncomfortable to them. Too much, too intense, too honest. Read the room. Carl Jung called this the persona, not a criticism. A clinical observation about a structure that every human being carries. The social mask, the constructed, managed, carefully maintained version of the self that we present to the world. Jung believed the persona was necessary. He also believed it was the source of one of the most common forms of psychological suffering he encountered, not the mask itself. What happens when you wear it for so long that you forget there was ever a face underneath? To understand Jung's warning about the persona, you need to understand what he thought it was for. The persona is not a lie. Jung was specific about this. It is a functional structure, the psychological equivalent of the clothes we wear. We do not wear the same clothes in every context. We do not present the same version of ourselves in every context. That is not deception. That is social intelligence. The problem Jung identified is not the existence of the persona. It is what happens when the persona becomes the primary address. When the managed, acceptable, legible version of the self is not something you put on for specific context, but something you cannot take off. Something that is running constantly in every room, including the ones where no performance is required, including when you are alone. Jung observed this in his clinical practice with striking frequency. Patients who were socially successful, professionally respected, relationally functional, outwardly composed, arriving in the consulting room with a specific complaint that they struggled to articulate, a flatness, a distance from their own experience, the sense of going through the motions of a life that fits them perfectly on the outside and feels completely foreign from the inside. Jung's diagnosis was not depression, it was not anxiety, it was persona inflation. The persona had grown so large, so well developed, so comprehensively maintained that it had begun to crowd out everything that existed beneath it. The authentic reactions, the genuine desires, the responses that had not been pre-approved by the version of themselves they had decided to be. Jung described the fully inflated persona as one of the most isolating psychological conditions a person can experience. Because the isolation is invisible. The person is surrounded by people who respond warmly to them, who like them, respect them, rely on them. None of those people have met them. They have met the mask, and the person wearing it has been alone the entire time. Jung documented the persona's development across 3 stages that he observed consistently in analytical practice, each stage more personally recognizable than the last. The first stage is formation. The persona does not arrive fully formed. It is constructed gradually in response to specific feedback from specific environments. What was rewarded? What was punished? What produced connection and what produced rejection? A child who discovers that their intensity makes adults uncomfortable learns to manage their intensity. A child who discovers that their neediness produces withdrawal learns to perform independence. A child who discovers that their anger is intolerable learns to present as calm. None of this is calculated. It is adaptive. The persona is built by a person who is simply learning what they need to be to survive their specific environment. By the time that environment changes, by the time they are an adult in different circumstances, the adaptations are so ingrained that they no longer feel like adaptations. They feel like personality. They are not personality. They are armor that has been worn for so long, it is fused to the skin. The second stage is consolidation. The persona, once formed, begins to select for the environments and relationships that confirm it. A person who has built their persona around competence, around the projection of capability and self-sufficiency, will gravitate toward situations that reward that projection. They will be drawn to people who need them to be capable, who become uncomfortable or disappointed when they are not, who, without either party being fully aware of it, are in a relationship not with the person, but with the persona. And when something breaks through, when the exhaustion or the doubt or the genuine need surfaces, the person feels not relief, but shame, because the mask slipped, because someone saw. Jung observed that this is the point at which the persona begins to cost more than it was designed to cost, because it is no longer just a social function. It has become a relational contract. Other people are now invested in the version of you that you have presented. And revealing the face beneath the mask does not just risk your own discomfort. It risks the relationship itself. So the mask stays on. Even in the dark, even alone. The third stage is the one that requires the most stillness to acknowledge. You have had the experience of not knowing what you actually think. Someone asks your opinion about something that matters, not something trivial. And before a genuine response can form, the persona has already calculated the appropriate answer. What would the version of me that this person knows say? What response fits the identity I have established here? What do I think I'm supposed to think? Jung called this persona possession, the stage at which the mask has become so primary that the authentic response does not have time to surface before the performed response is already on its way out. The mask is no longer something you wear. It is something you are. And somewhere below it, something is waiting to be asked what it actually thinks. Think about the version of yourself you present most consistently, not the version you show in moments of crisis, that one tends to be real. The version you present in ordinary, stable, functional life, the qualities you lead with, the personality traits that the people in your life would use to describe you. The version of you that exists in the rooms you enter regularly. Now ask, how much of that is chosen? And how much of it is what you discovered was safe? Jung's framework draws a specific distinction here. A chosen quality is one you could put down. One you could, in the right context, with the right person, let drop without experiencing it as a threat to your identity. A persona quality is different. A persona quality cannot be put down without producing anxiety, without a feeling that the person you have been is under threat, that the relationship, the role, the room you are in would not survive the real version. If I showed them how uncertain I actually am, if I stopped performing the competence, if I let them see the need, what would be left? Think about the last time someone saw through the persona. Not in a hostile way, in a gentle, accurate way. Someone who noticed something true about you that you had not presented. And think about your response, whether it was warmth, because finally someone saw, or whether it was a closing, a subtle recalibration of the distance between you, a reason, barely conscious to see that person less. Jung observed that the persona's most sophisticated operation is not the maintenance of the mask. It is the management of anyone who threatens to look behind it. The people who see you most clearly are the ones you keep at the most careful distance, not because they are dangerous, because they are accurate. Think about the exhaustion, not the tiredness of a long day. The specific exhaustion of a social event, a professional context, a family gathering, where you performed well, where everything went as it was supposed to go, and you came home and felt completely empty, like something had been used up. Not energy, something more specific than energy. Jung's framework names that feeling precisely. It is the cost of running the persona at full capacity. The psychic expenditure of maintaining for hours a version of yourself that is coherent and acceptable and legible, while the actual self has no oxygen. The persona does not just hide you from other people, it hides you from yourself. And the longer it runs without interruption, the less certain you become about what it is hiding. Jung did not argue that the persona should be dismantled. This is a critical point, and one that separates his framework from the popular version of it. The persona is not the enemy. It is a necessary structure. We cannot function socially without it. We cannot move between contexts, between roles, between the different registers that different relationships require without some capacity to manage how we present ourselves. What Jung identified as the problem is not the mask. It is the identification with the mask. The moment at which I am the competent one, I am the calm one, I am the person who does not need things, shifts from a description of a role to a description of a self. Because at that point, the shadow, everything that the persona is not, everything that has been compressed and hidden and denied access, becomes not just suppressed, it becomes threatening. Any crack in the persona is now a potential exposure of everything the persona was built to conceal. And so the persona must be maintained more rigidly, more completely, at greater cost. Jung described the progression as an inverse relationship. The more inflated the persona becomes, the more dense the shadow becomes. Everything the mask excludes gets compressed into the shadow. The need, the anger, the uncertainty, the desire to be seen without performing. And the shadow does not simply accumulate. It pressurizes until it finds a release, which is why the most composed people, the most performed people, the people whose persona is most airtight, often produce the most disproportionate collapses when the mask finally comes off. Not because something broke from outside, because the pressure of what was being held inside finally exceeded the capacity of the structure containing it. The mask becomes the face. Jung's warning is not about honesty. It is not about authenticity in the way the word is used today. It is about survival. The persona that has no access to the shadow will eventually be overwhelmed by it, not as a philosophical consequence, as a clinical one. The question Jung considered worth asking is not how to remove the mask. It is whether you still know it is there, whether somewhere beneath the performance, there is still a person who knows the difference between who they are and who they have decided to appear to be. But the persona is only half of the structure. The other half is what the persona is concealing. And Jung found something specific about the people whose persona was built around niceness, around agreeableness, around the consistent, reliable, uncomplicated presentation of warmth. He found that this particular mask, the one that looks most benign from the outside, conceals the densest shadow, the dark truth about your nice personality. That is next,